Hi guys, and welcome to another video for Eduqas English Language. In this video we are going to be looking at paper 2 and the Antarctic paper, so hopefully you've got that one in front of you to work along with the video. Okay, so let's begin by looking at question 1. We're just going to be dealing with the reading section in this first part here. And the first question is always going to ask you on the modern text. So you can see at the top here, read the newspaper article Antarctic Adventure in the separate resource material. And the first question is, why did Ben Fogle think he was going to die on his journey to the South Pole? Okay, so this is a 1-mark question, so therefore we can have a very short single word or sometimes short phrase answer. Your rules for this, as you can see on the left hand side of the video here, is that you must make sure that you specify any units which are important. So that's going to be important for part B in a second. Okay, so you want to be having a look at the full article, which you can see at the bottom of the screen here, and making sure you're looking for why he thought he was going to die on his journey towards the South Pole. Okay, I'll give you a little bit of a clue. The answer to this first one is in the first column. So if you want to pause the video now and to have a look, and then we'll have a look at it together in a moment. Okay, if you've unpaused the video, you should have found, hopefully, if I just highlight here, I need to do it in green as I always do, that if we go down, it says that he strayed onto a dangerous crevasse. So this is why he thinks he's going to die. It also mentions the crevasse, multiple times, and the fact that he thinks it's shifting beneath him. But he walks onto a dangerous crevasse, and that is the answer. Okay. If you've already done parts B and C, just fast forward in the video. I'll show you the answers in a second. If you haven't, then pause the video now and you're looking to find those. So the second one, how much time did the men spend skiing each day? So make sure you give the units here and see how did James Cracknell cope with the long days on the expedition. Okay, so pause the video now and have a look for those. And if you've unpaused, you should find that it's right over here on the third column on the right hand side. So they'd have 16-hour days, which is there. And Cracknell spent his time listening to Andrew Marr's History of Modern Britain. So the answers are there. If I show you the actual mark scheme, that's what it should look like. So you can see there, he walks onto a dangerous crevasse, 16 hours a day, and Andrew Marr's History of Modern Britain. So tick those off and give yourself a score out of 3. Okay, we're now going to go on to question 2. Just better scroll down at the top here. The question 2 says, how does the writer of the newspaper article try to show that Ben Fogle's expedition to the South Pole was full of danger and difficulty? Well, the first thing you want to do is highlight those words there, danger and difficulty. That means you are looking for bad sounding things, okay? So it might seem simple, but just make sure you really focus in terms of looking for that. So lots of negative things you need to find. As many negative things as you can. The more that you find, the higher your answer is going to be. And you're aiming for 10 because it's a 10-mark question. Okay? So clearly, when they're in the Antarctic, before you even look at any detail about it, they're in a place where they're cut off from civilization. It's very cold. It's going to be very dangerous. So some of these things are going to be quite obvious, but you have to make sure you connect it to the evidence which is there. Now I've got the mark scheme next to me on another screen here, and there are a huge number of answers that you can put for this question. So some of this, if you go through and you think, oh, I'm not sure if that's an answer, it really will be an answer. There are lots and lots of common ones which are there. Okay. So if we look at the first part, I'm just going to zoom in ever so slightly so we can make that a little bigger. There we go. So the first thing, which if we ignore these other highlights actually because they're from the previous question, let's just get rid of those. If we look at the first sentence, it was the moment when Ben Fogle thought he was going to die. Well, when the question says danger and difficulty, if we just highlight those up there, we're looking for negatives. Where is that negative in that first sentence? The moment when Ben Fogle thought he was going to die. So that should be the first thing that you highlight there. All right. Now this is a common evidence question. So if I just bring in a little model here, that's how you've been taught to structure this in school, in class. So comment is either your own words, thoughts or feelings of what is happening, and then your evidence or your quotation here. So we're going to put firstly, so if you start by writing along with me, and then we need to put the idea of going to die into our own words, but we can't use the word die, we can't use the word danger or difficulty because they're in the question, okay? So we need to show that we understand why thinking that you're going to die is a danger or a difficulty using one of these 3 ideas. Well, how would you feel, for example, if you're going to die? Well, you could say they're going to be scared, they're going to be, full of anxiety, panic, or something like that, okay? they feel as though they've got no chance. You know, their own words. They feel as though they're going to be stuck there. They feel though they will never leave. Something like that. So we're going to put firstly, they felt incredibly scared as he thought he was going to die. Okay, so there's one answer for you. And if we just color code what we've got there, there's the evidence, and there is the comment, which matches up. That will get you 1 mark. Okay, so you want to pause the video now and have a go at doing the rest of that question. Okay, so make sure you use, if we just scroll out here, make sure you use the entire extract. You've got all sorts of different things to cover. You've got it in front of you. Try and make sure as well, guys, that when you're doing it, you cover a range of areas within the text. So you want to make sure you get some from this. So I'd aim for, 3, 4, 5 from this section. You want the same for this column as well, 3, 4, or 5 here, and then you want some for this as well. So you've got a nice balance of your answer across. If you take all of your answer from the first column, you're not going to hit all areas of the mark scheme. Okay, so you want to give yourself 15 minutes, okay, starting with that first one that I've just done there for you, and pause the video now and complete that, and then come back for the answers. Okay, if you have paused the video and completed your answer, hopefully you've done really well. You've got lots of comments, lots of evidence in there, and here is the mark scheme which you're going to use. So I'll talk you through it, but obviously you can pause the video as well and have a look for yourself. So you can see here, it says about that first one, they're going to die. I did that one as the model for you. The danger is emphasized by the giant crevasse, so actually it's the same part of the answer as the first question. He uses lots of what Fogle tells him, adding additional details. So any specific details which are referenced about the danger you can use there. The expedition is grueling and it makes him terrified. He talks about the details of the crevasse, makes him realize the danger he was in. So anything about, like the size and the danger of it. It takes such a toll on their bodies, and it's the hardest thing he's ever done. So both of those are the same answer. You can't get both of those separately because they're on the same bullet point. He gives details of the elements he suffered: frostbite, burnt lips, blistered feet, or hypothermia. Again, you can only have one of them because they're all the same type of thing. He didn't think they would actually finish. That's your next one. He feared he would lose his nose because of the severity of the frostbite. Again, same thing. Factual details about the 2 other people and their sufferings are given. So anything about the people he was with on the expedition. Anything about the conditions, so the cold winds, the whiteouts, the low temperatures. Again, only one of those acceptable. He uses the adjective vast and hostile to describe the landscape, so it describes a very difficult, isolating experience for them. The word hostile is repeated by Fogle to emphasize the difficulty of the journey. They had to do it for 16 hours every day. Again, it's using that detail from that previous question, but you're going to talk about how tiring and arduous that is. On the expedition, all of them lost weight because of how hard they had to work. They had bitter storms. And then these are the how points at the end. These ones only apply if you are getting at least 7 of the details above. Okay, so that's the answer for question 2. Right, let's go on to question 3. So as always, this will require you to switch text to look at the old-fashioned text, the one that's pre-1900. Okay, so I'm going to scroll down, and I have it down here. So this is Robert Scott's diary. So you've got 3 questions here. And the first one is, what animals did Scott have on the expedition with him? The second one, write out the sentence that shows Scott is surprised by the weather he faced. So that's your key focus of that question. And third, why does Scott describe the situation in his Thursday diary as being now serious? So you look for that phrase, now serious, and look for the reason for it. I'm not going to give you too much help with this one because the approach is exactly the same as question 1. But again, you want to pause the video now and have a look at the extract that you should have in front of you. Maximum 5 minutes on this question, and you can use very short answers. For example, the answer to question 3 part A, you can write 1 word because you can just put the name of the type of animals there. Part B and C will require a phrase. With C, there are 1, 2, 3 possible options, so you don't have to just have one particular one. So pause the video and have a go at that now, and then come back for the answer. Okay, if you have done that and unpaused, then the answers that you require are here. So the first one you want to tick off is that they had ponies with them. The second one, what on earth does such weather mean at this time of year? And third, you can either have very little food for the animals, they may have to kill them, or they are still not able to move because of the weather. All of those make it serious. So any one of those is a potential answer. Okay, so let's move that one away. And now we're looking at question 4. So this is the big 10 marker for the old-fashioned text here. So this is a 15-minute question. So let's look at the question itself. It says, the writer Robert Scott builds a picture of frustration and hopelessness. So those are the words that you want to circle and highlight in his journey towards the South Pole. How far do you agree with this statement? So we're looking for negatives again. So you always want to make that decision at first. Are you looking for good things or bad things? And here you are looking for negatives. All right? So we're going to have a look at this together, and then you'll get some time again to complete this yourself. All right. So if I just zoom in, I'm going to make sure it's a little larger to see. There we go. You cannot use the italics at the top. Okay, that's just to give you a little bit of context about the writing, but anything else is eligible to use for answers. Now, there's lots of possible answers for this one, so it shouldn't be too bad. Okay, let's look at the first sentence. Tuesday, December 5th. We awoke this morning to a raging, howling blizzard. Well, look at the question, frustration and hopelessness. Where do you think is the answer of frustration and hopelessness there? Well, it's the blizzard, isn't it? The raging, howling blizzard. So that is going to effectively trap them, isn't it? It's going to make them feel, that they're not going to be able to go. They're going to be restricted. They're going to be limited. They're not going to be able to see. Something like that. Okay? Let's have a look at one more together. After a minute or two, one is covered from head to foot in fine powdery snow. Okay, so you could have that being covered from head to foot in snow. The issue is that a blizzard and snow is the same thing, basically. So they're the same bullet point on the mark scheme. All right, let's look at the next. The ponies are covered in ice and standing in deep snow. The sledges are almost covered, and there are huge drifts above the tents. Okay, so you've got here the deep snow, the sledges being covered, or the huge drifts. So this is slightly different because one is just about the fact of it being a blizzard. The second is more about the effect of the blizzard, the fact that it's covering everything. They're going to be struggling to move, etc. So let's write up those two together as a sample answer. Now, do remember that when you're doing question 4, okay, this is about how far do you agree with this statement. I'm just going to highlight that at the top there because we always have the idea of a judgment in question 4. So if I just scroll up and make that fit in, there we go. So you're going to put a judgment or an opinion. Now, you don't have to do this on every comment evidence, but you're going to do it on some, and it's really a good idea to do it on the first one, okay? So what could we put there? Well, the statement talks about being frustrating and hopeless, so we can't use those words, all right? But if it's a raging, howling blizzard, why would that be so negative? Okay, so firstly, I agree. They would feel down. They would feel depressed. Would be depressed by the terrible weather, as there was a raging, howling blizzard. Okay, so there's one answer, and if we just color code what's there, that is our judgment. Okay, so if I just zoom out, actually, you can see it a little better there. So that's where we're agreeing with the statement. Terrible weather is showing we understand what the evidence is about, so that's going to be in yellow, comment, and the raging, howling blizzard, there is the evidence. Okay, so then if we did one about the deep snow, the sledges being covered, the huge drifts as well, it's this idea of them struggling to move. They're going to be trapped, but we don't need to do a judgment with that one because we've just done one in the first sentence. Also, they are trapped by the huge drifts. And although that's a really short answer, it does understand what's actually going on because we've got this idea of them they are trapped. So we have a clear comment there. Okay? So that's 2 answers done for you, and clearly, if we were to mark that, then that would get 1 mark for that and 1 mark for that. So far, that would score 2 out of 10. Okay? So you want to pause the video now and have a go at doing the rest yourself, and make sure that you try and aim for 10 in 15 minutes. Okay? And then unpause the video and come back for the answers. Okay, if you've managed to do that, then there are a huge number of possible answers, as I said before. Here they all are. So, we've got they are trapped in a raging, howling blizzard, the one I did in the answer, covered from head to foot in snow. The ponies are covered in snow, the drifts are tense, they struggle to move. They have a thin breakfast, so they don't get much to eat, because obviously they've got to carry all their food with them on this expedition. They cannot see the next tent, so visibility is low. They have their share of ill fortune. It's a greatest snowfall, I remember, so it's a huge amount. Water is everywhere, they're soaked, everything's very wet, all the same point here. If a cold snap follows the water, they'll be mighty uncomfortable. Why? Because if a cold snap follows the water, the water will freeze. The food is having to be rationed. The next day is utterly miserable. The tempest rages violently, so that means that the storm continues to build. The snow levels climb higher and higher, and it's trapping them all about the walls, the ponies, the tents, the ledges. So again, it's surrounding them. Even the ponies are depressed. It's utterly desolate, like their feelings of emptiness, which are there. A hopeless feeling descends. That's a key phrase there, and it's hard to fight off. They need immense patience to cope, so they need to be resilient. They went to bed hungry because the food's running out. The situation is now serious as we track through the extract. They have run out of food for the animals, so they must move or sacrifice them, you could also put. The experience is as unpleasant as ever. It's impossible to move. And then here at the end are your hows. Okay, but again, these only apply if you're finding at least 7 of those bits of evidence that I have just mentioned. Okay, so let's move those out of the way and go on to question 5. All right. So question 5, you will always need to use both texts. Okay, I don't want to bring in question 6 just yet. Okay, so to answer the following question, you will need to use both texts. Using information from both texts, explain briefly what we learn about the food that Scott and Fogle took with them on their expeditions to the South Pole. So the key word here is food. You have to write about food, else nothing will be credited whatsoever. Okay. Your other rules for this question is you must mention the writer's name or the text name. You cannot say the writer because otherwise it's not clear which text you're talking about. And you should be able to get full marks in 2 sentences. So you can start your first one with, if I just bring this up here. Okay, so this is not a comment evidence question. We'll put, not Fogle, we'll put in the Fogle text. And then list 3 things about the food. So it could be the types of food, it could be their kind of like experience with the food, what happens with the food, just 3 things that you find about the food. And then you're going to switch and you're going to say in the Scott text, and you're going to list 3 things there as well. Why are we listing 3 when it's a 4-mark question? That's because in case one of them's wrong, you want to make sure that you've got an insurance for each one. And you're allowed to get 1 mark on one and 3 marks on the other, or 3 marks on one and 1 on the other, or 2 marks on one and 2 marks on the other. But you have to get at least 1 relevant mark from each of the texts. Okay, there are 3 possible answers in each text, and you obviously only need to find 4 to get full marks. All right, so if you want to pause the video now and have a go at doing question 5 and come back for the answers. Okay, if you have unpaused the video, then these are the possible answers there. So Scott had to eat pemmican, biscuits, horse meat, and they drank cocoa or tea. So if you want to just see how that would be structured, it really is a case of just listing it out. If I move this up on the screen, that's better. It really is a case of just listing it out there. So in the Fogle text, we'll start with that one first. They had chocolate and salami to eat. They drank tea and coffee. So that would be the second point. And they enjoyed their food from heaven. You don't have to use quotes with this one. You could just put they enjoyed their food and that would get you the mark, but I have done in this one. Okay, so chocolate and salami, either one of those will get the credit. I've just put 2 in. Tea and coffee, 2, and enjoyed their food from heaven. That's 3 marks. Okay, however, in the Scott text, they had cocoa and their meals were running out and they had little choice. So that's the kind of thing that you wanted to do. All right, 2 sentences, and technically there are 6 correct answers there, but clearly it's only a 4-mark question, so just 4 would be correct. Okay, so that's the kind of thing that you just have to do to put that in a sentence. No real detail whatsoever. All right, let's go on to question 6. Now, question 6, as you can see here, both these texts are about the South Pole. Yeah. The first bullet point gives you the focus. Compare the difficulties Scott and Fogle endured on their expedition. So you want to circle difficulties as the keyword in this question, and then how they get across the feelings about their difficulties. But again, you're still staying focused on the idea of difficulties and negatives. So what made it difficult? Now, one of the things to emphasize with this question is you can reuse answers that you have done in previous questions. So answers to question 2 and 4, for example, are going to reappear in this one. All right. Now, you don't want to be repeating anything that happened in question 5. 5 and 6 are always got separate focuses here. Okay. So you always want to make sure that you've got that kind of different focus. There might be an acknowledgement about the food, for example, but it's very much not going to be a main focus of the question. It certainly won't be on the recent exams on the modern text that we've seen. Okay. So if we just bring back my structured answers here. So we're going to start off by saying, in the Fogle text, well, what was one of the difficulties in that first text? Well, they had things like low temperatures and bad weather and things like that. So we could say, in the Fogle text, they suffered with very low temperatures. So here you've got your bit of evidence, and I've put a one-word kind of, well, 2 words, I suppose, for the phrase they suffered. Now, you don't always need a comment in these ones. That's going to be enough detail, okay? They also faced things like physical hardships. So they had things like pneumonia and blisters and stuff like that. Also faced physical difficulties like blisters and chest infections. So again, that's going to get you a 2nd mark. Now, if I just got rid of that, so they also had, and put they also had blisters and chest infections like that, that would also get you the credit, okay? It doesn't really matter, it's just whatever you think shows that you've understood that question. Sometimes you'll want a comment, sometimes you won't. It's kind of optional with this question, okay? Now, you need to repeat that idea. This is a 10-mark question, so you want to make sure that you've covered at least 5 things for each text, bearing in mind that you might get some of them wrong. And then you're going to start a new paragraph and say, however, in the Scott text, they, and then we're going to make sure we say things like, you know, faced howling blizzards, for example. And that would get you a mark for that one. All right, so then you're going to repeat that. You can notice how there that I haven't really put a comment in that one. And again, you want to repeat, so find 5 or 6 things for that. Make sure you've named the text. Separate paragraphs, do not flip-flop between. You do not need to. It's not a requirement of the question. 1 big paragraph on the first text, 1 big paragraph on the second. You have got 15 minutes. Your time starts now, and then come back for the answers. Okay. Once you've unpaused the video, then here are your possible answers for these hardships which are there. Okay. So in the Scott text, we've got blizzards and very strong winds. I'll highlight those ones. Oops, make sure I use the right colour. Blizzards and strong winds. The snow piles up with huge drifts. The temperatures are freezing. Water's everywhere. This is all in the same bullet point. Lack of food. So it is a brief mention, but not much. They cannot move out of their tents. Okay. The other Scott things that mention how they're conveyed. So it builds up day by day. You've got a detailed description. He records his frustrations, and you've also got that kind of first-person tone, okay, and style to it, and voice. Fogle has very low temperatures, there's storms and whiteouts, there's frostbite, blisters, pneumonia, all those physical things, and they also have to ski for a long time each day. Okay, there's also that kind of like first person style with lots of quotations, the interview and digital details, and the fact the expedition is reflected on after the event, so the tonal things that are there. But a lot of your answers are going to come from this bit here and this bit here. Okay, and each one of those will get you 1 mark up to a maximum of 10 out of 10. Okay. So that is your reading section done for that paper, okay? If you want to have a go at the writing section for that one, as a little bit of extra, these are the questions that you would do. You've been shown how to do this in class. That isn't the main focus of this video, because that can be more of an independent thing to do, but we'll just go through them very briefly. You've been asked to give a talk to your classmates about your hobby or special interest to try and get others involved. Write down what you would say. So you could do a presentation on, you know, a musical instrument that you play, a sport that you do, etc. Break it down into paragraphs. You're aiming for 300 to 400 words, so that's about 1.5 sides to 2 sides. 30 minutes strict timing. And for a talk, you need to make sure that it's pitched appropriately. It sounds like a talk. And the second one, Write a letter to your newspaper giving your views about raising the age for drinking alcohol to 21. Okay, so that would be a formal letter, introduction, dear editor or dear sir or madam, introduction, 4 paragraphs with different ideas in, conclusion, and sign off with yours faithfully at the end. You don't need an address for that one. Okay, so have a go at those and feel free to bring those back into school and show your teacher to get a little bit of feedback on them. All right, that's it for this video. Hope it was a useful video for you, and make sure you've had a look at the other ones and the other packs of papers that are in your revision booklets.